As the days drift by, the blobs start to grow. They get bigger and bigger. Each one becomes a tadpole. The tadpoles wiggle out of their eggs. So when we stand up and pretend we're tadpoles, that we're wiggling, you gotta wiggle hard, you gotta get out of that jelly. Good stuff, and now we're free, and now let's go back. We're in our pond. You have to try to, as much as you can, combine different subject areas with the curriculum being so demanding and so many different things that you have to touch. You can't teach them all in isolation. What do you think happens next in our story? Jonathan?
It's gonna lose its tail and turn into the frog.
Let's see. He turns into a frog. First started doing the science, coming up with we're going to be doing there, the life cycles and changes in animals. And then we took that, since it was lending itself to so much reading and doing research, we thought it would also lend itself nicely into the writing component, the language arts of it. So we've been working on that. And then just lent itself very nicely into doing an art activity, which that was the focus of today as well, trying to bring in an area in math that we had already covered, doing patterning, but this was just a way to go back and reinforce ideas that were already covered and incorporating that into the overall lesson as well. We have the informational tracking wall, tracks where the students are at. So even if they forget when we start in the morning, they exactly just look over, see their name, and they say, oh, okay, I'm on the drafting stage today of my first piece, or I'm just starting my web, or I'm still have to go on the computer and do my research and things like that. So it allows them to know at a glance exactly where they're at. And also, if a student's not aware, I can look over and quickly redirect them and say, okay, you've just finished your web, now you need to move on to your draft. What was our first step that we had to do? Title, yeah. So pretty important in our piece of writing to put the title, so it allows our audience to know exactly what they're going to be reading about when they read for us. One of our first steps was to use the graphic organizer to give them not only the purpose for writing, but to give them the structure to write. So often they don't know where to start. So we set it out where even if they're not strong writers, they can, at the completion of the activity, they'll have a good quality 12 to 15 sentences that are answering or giving information science related. Okay, so our title is that. What was your interesting fact that you found out about penguins?
They live at the South Pole.
What were you investigating? Bunnies. What interesting facts did you find out about bunnies?
Bunnies can hear from far away.
Is that why they have such big ears? By giving them the chance to work independently like that, it does allow it for the students who are a little faster working, and also allows for the students who are a little more detail driven, that want to take a step back, slow down a little bit. So it allows for students to get a small piece of information or instruction. They know what they're supposed to do. They can go to their desk, work on that. Some students might be done very fast and are ready for the next step. So we bring them all back to the carpet. They get another small piece of information. So instead of it being overwhelming and them not knowing exactly where they're going to go to next, even if they're not done the one before, the next instruction is still small enough that they'll be able to finish up their first instruction and start into their second one. And do all different animals usually have a certain way that they like to move around? Who can think of another way that different animals might move around? We saw frogs, they hop. Can anyone think of another word to describe how a different animal might move around? So we've had the students working together at the carpet first, working as a group, talking about the different ways animals move, the different movements that how different animals maybe adapt to their environment and why they have to move that certain way, or why their bodies make them move in a certain way. Now, why can they run and a penguin can't run?
Because they have long legs.
Yeah, they have long legs, so they're really good runners. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into some groups. I'm going to give you a little animal card. And in your group, you're going to have to try to think for a moment, how would that animal move? So in drama, we were working on body awareness, allowing the students to know their personal space and then taking that into consideration when they're trying to decide the characteristics of animals, how those animals would move around, what body parts certain animals would use, and just try to get them to reflect that in their movement as well, if it was slow or fast. You've had your own time to find your personal space in the room and practice those movements to see how that animal might move. Now we want to take the chance to share with your classmates how well you did working in groups. Action. Ooh, even some sound effects. Yes, see how they're flying in? There's the leader. What were some of the actions, movements that they were doing that were giving us clues? Jonathan?
They were standing on one leg.
I think it's very important for the younger learners to have that feedback immediately, because if you're to do it after the fact and then say for the next time try this, I think the next time might be a couple days away, maybe next week, and that's going to be like forgotten. Let's think of some other things that kangaroos might do or the way they might behave.
They hover.
They have fur, so maybe they could be cleaning themselves a little bit to show good stuff, yeah. They don't hop in a bathtub like we do, right? So I think it's very important to have that feedback and trying it out more or less immediately.
I liked when we did the animals and doing the moving and guessing because you could do arts and play.
We've been talking about all different types of living things. We've talked about that in science. We've done it in drama. We've been doing it in our language arts. We've written about them. Now we're going to do visual arts with them as well. So step one was we had reviewed the different characteristics and kind of thought what might be an interesting animal to draw based on certain animals having more interesting type lines to them, like elephants with their trunkers or their big ears, or zebras with their stripes and things like that. So the students then had to go back and draw the image, but not focusing too much on specific detail and fine detail. It was just, we were just trying to get the overall shape and image of the animal down on the paper, and then we stopped there and we brought them back to the carpet.
The most difficult and challenging part was the making the animal, because you had to make the arms and the body shape, and it was hard. I knew using rulers or technology.
The other day in math, we were talking about lines, and we talked about lines that go this way and lines that go this way. What do we call a line that goes across?
Horizon line.
Horizon line in art, yes. We talked about the horizon line, putting that into the page, showing them that everything, the horizon's not always on the bottom, and the animal's just standing on the ground and having to fill up all the upper page of the paper just with things that were in the sky. So then once they did that, we came back and we talked about different patterns that could be incorporated into the animals. Hearts by itself, is that a pattern? No. What else would I have to do?
Heart triangle.
Heart and triangles. And you'll be doing it in pencil. Remember, if you don't like it that way, you can erase it. I'm going to do it in marker so you guys can see.
Patterns, they have to repeat or else you're not a pattern. Like here's a pattern, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Some students chose to go realistic and make wavy lines for the elephants, and some wanted to just do patterns that weren't realistic but made their art special. So maybe it was just circle squares throughout, so it made each one unique. Then they came back to their carpet again, and we just spoke about different patterns that could be incorporated around the frame of the picture. Addie, to be a pattern, what does it have to do again?
Repeat.
It has to repeat. So you might be working on your page like this, working across, doing your pattern. But what's going to happen when you get down to here, Austin? Do we choose a different pattern for over here? No. Got to spin our page and keep the pattern going across there. With a project like this, and at the younger students, you do have to do it very step by step by step, because if you just stood at the front and said, okay, let's do this and be done with it, by the end you would have 22 different things, because certain students would remember certain aspects and really emphasize that and forget other ones. So I think that was really important, was to really model it for them, to show step by step what the expectations were so they could go back and also have success. Now that most of us have finished retracing all our outside lines, now your job to do is go into your picture in the middle and trace over any of the lines that you have there. So your animal now has to be traced around, and all the patterns that you put inside that animal also has to be traced. What are you doing on yours?
I was thinking I can color this row or that row.
So let's see, if we look at it this way, how would you like? Would you like black coming down or black going up?
Black coming down.
Black coming down, so you're going to color in that one first. When you're sitting down just talking to them about their animal that they've done. You can ask them those specific questions where when there's 20 of them looking up at you and you show them a picture and you say, what animal group does this fall into? You only get to talk with one at a time. But this way you can actually sit down with them. That you can say, tell me about your picture, and hopefully they're going to tell you, oh, it's a reptile. It's cold-blooded, it's living here in the desert, or things like that. So it allows me to actually get that one-on-one time to see if they did understand the different characteristics that we were looking for in our science unit, but now they're also talking about it during their art unit.
Maybe the color choice matches some kind of characteristic of that animal. For instance, this snake you might want to have, because it looks as though it's in a desert, maybe a green or a brown or an orange, something along those lines.
So friends, that's the next step we're going to do. We're almost all to our finished product now, but we have to decide what color background paper we're going to use based on kind of the habitat of your animal that you chose. So in the video clip here on the smartboard, they said a snake lives in a desert and it might be a brown color. What color might you use for the background if you did a nice starfish? Sharju? Blue, yes. Why would you choose blue for a starfish?
Blue is a reefal color.
Yes, it's the color that you might find it on the reef, a coral reef. Using the ArtSmart website, I found it very beneficial. It was very step-by-step, so it was very easy to follow. And I liked the fact that it did as well take into the fact cross-curricular activities. So it wasn't just an art lesson by itself that it was focusing on. It was also including the science using the animals as the main theme on the page, and as well incorporating the math and patterns ideas as well with it.
It was really fun when I did the art, the tracing, the art, and the drawing.
Okay, friends, you have completed your art job for today. All great, fantastic work was done. Just a few friends that still have a few more things to finish up, but those friends will have time to get back to that. What we'd like to do now is like to go on our gallery walk. We've put your artwork up on the board out in the hallway, because in every subject area in the curriculum, some students are more advanced than other ones. So I don't so much look at the finished product as long as they were trying their best, going through step by step, listening to the instructions and working their way there. Is there anything that anybody wants to say, something that they really like about a piece of the artwork that we saw, or something about how someone followed the directions really well and came up with a really neat idea with it? Jonathan, which one? Remember, we can point with our hands, but we don't actually touch the artwork, okay? This one here, what do you like about that one?
How the feathers are in the back.
So Jonathan liked this one here, how we said the feathers are coming out the back of the peacock.
I like this one and this one. I see mine.
What part do you like about this one?
I like how it goes like that.
Oh, you like the small pattern on the inside of the border. Excellent. And what do you like about this one?
I like it.
You like the pattern around the outside. At young ages, they can't look at their own work and critically analyze it and say, maybe I could have done this a little bit better, or try to do this differently. Where younger students, they'll look at anybody's work and just be honest and say, maybe, I would have done this better. They're also very good at pointing out the positives, where a lot of us, we don't hear the good things so much about our work. It's like, okay, it's finished and it's done. Let's move on to the next thing. So I think that's very important, that they get to recognize something that they might not have seen as a positive in their piece of work, but someone else has noticed and points that out to them. And they say like, wow, I never thought I did a really good job on that, but somebody else has recognized it and given me credit for it. So I think that's really good for them, for their self-esteem.
I like at the end how we looked at the art and it's nice, everybody drew nice, and Mr. B put him on the board.
But look how fantastic they all turned out. Good stuff. Okay, let's quietly walk back to our class. You can take one more look as you go by. I thought the day was very fun. I thought the students really enjoyed themselves. They didn't see it as, oh, we're still talking about animals again, we're still doing this again. It was covered in 4 different subject areas, with the writing as well as the language arts and math. And I don't think they recognized it as that. Like, we've talked about the same thing all day long, but we did, and we've covered so many different things at it. So I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I think they really enjoyed it with the different activities and things like that.